It shows where someone's heart truly lies. When someone doesn't make space for you or treats your time as disposable, it communicates a lack of respect and emotional investment. Over time, this neglect chips away at the connection and leaves you feeling isolated, undervalued, and unimportant. You begin to notice a pattern of missed opportunities for closeness and genuine connection, replaced instead by excuses, broken promises, or indifference. Relationships thrive on shared experiences and quality time, and without that, they become shallow and unsatisfying. The unwillingness or inability to prioritize you is more than just poor time management. It's a reflection of their true feelings about the relationship. When your presence is always negotiable or secondary, it's a clear signal that you don't hold a meaningful place in their life. Another behavior that reveals a lack of genuine care is when someone consistently fails to prioritize your time or presence, making you feel like an afterthought in their life. Everyone's schedule gets busy, and it's normal for people to have competing demands, but when someone truly cares about you, they find ways to make time or at least communicate honestly when they can't. However, people who don't care often cancel plans last minute, arrive late without apology, or seem distracted and disengaged when you are together. They might frequently prioritize other commitments, friends, or activities over spending meaningful time with you, making it clear through their actions that you're not a priority. This behavior can feel hurtful and confusing, especially when you make the effort to be present for them. You may start questioning your value or doubting the relationship because time is one of the most tangible expressions of care. Especially when you know the truth but feel powerless to change their attitude. Over time, this pattern erodes trust and respect because it shows that they prioritize their ego over the relationship. You begin to feel unheard and invalidated, as if your feelings and experiences don't matter enough to prompt even a basic apology or effort to improve. This kind of behavior can also lead to a cycle of repeated harm. Since no lessons are learned and no growth happens, the same issues arise again and again. Relationships require a level of vulnerability and humility, but when someone refuses to be accountable, they shut down that possibility. Instead, they create a dynamic where your emotional well-being is constantly at risk because their actions go unchecked and unresolved. The unwillingness to admit mistakes is not just stubbornness. It's a sign that they don't value the connection enough to work on themselves or the relationship. Another behavior that clearly shows someone doesn't truly care about you is when they consistently avoid accountability and refuse to admit when they're wrong. In any relationship, whether personal or professional, mistakes happen, and what really matters is how people handle those mistakes. Someone who cares about you will acknowledge their faults, apologize sincerely, and work to make things better. But people who don't care often dodge responsibility, shift blame onto others, or make excuses to protect themselves. This refusal to own up creates a toxic environment where you're left to manage the fallout alone, whether that's emotional pain, misunderstandings, or practical consequences. It's exhausting to constantly navigate their denials and justifications. Over time, this can drain you emotionally, making you feel like you're never enough, that no matter what you do, it's not quite right, not quite appreciated. People who care about you don't make their love or respect conditional. They don't measure your value based on what you can give them or how well you meet their unspoken standards. Instead, they accept you as you are and are present even when you're not performing. When someone makes you feel like their affection is something you have to earn, it places you in a position of constant insecurity. You become more focused on pleasing them than on being yourself. And the harsh truth is, this kind of conditional care isn't care at all. It's control dressed up as affection. It's the illusion of connection based on compliance rather than mutual appreciation. True relationships are not transactions. Another powerful sign that someone doesn't truly care about you is when they consistently make you feel like you have to earn their attention, affection, or approval. In this dynamic, your relationship with them feels more like a performance than a connection. You constantly feel the need to prove your worth, impress them, or behave in specific ways just to get a little bit of their time or emotional availability. They treat their care and attention like a reward you have to work for, not something they offer freely or naturally because they value you as a person. This kind of behavior is subtle but corrosive. They might only treat you kindly when you do something for them, or they become cold and distant the moment you express your own needs or assert your boundaries. You may notice that you're always second-guessing your words, changing your behavior to avoid rejection, or chasing after their validation like it's the only thing that can make you feel okay. Their energy feels cold, competitive, or dismissive rather than supportive and warm. And when you're going through hard times or trying to better yourself, they don't offer encouragement or help. They remain emotionally distant or passive. This kind of behavior can be confusing, especially when it comes from someone close to you. You might question why they seem so disinterested in your life or why they withdraw when you're doing well. But the truth is, their silence or indifference says everything. People who don't care won't invest in your dreams or show up for your transformation because your growth doesn't serve their interests or fit into their limited view of you. In some cases, your progress may even challenge them or remind them of their own stagnation, which they silently resent. But in any relationship where there is genuine care, there is also genuine pride, a desire to see the other person happy, evolving and becoming the best version of themselves. One of the most painful yet revealing signs that someone doesn't care about you is their complete lack of interest in your growth, happiness, or achievements. When someone genuinely values you, they naturally want to see you succeed, thrive, and feel fulfilled. They celebrate your wins, however big or small, and offer encouragement when you're pursuing something meaningful. But a person who doesn't care will either ignore your progress, belittle your efforts, or show subtle resentment when things start going well for you. You might notice that when you share good news, a promotion, a personal breakthrough, a creative project, they respond with a lackluster that's cool or change the subject entirely. Sometimes they may even undermine your success by pointing out flaws, suggesting it's not a big deal, or making it about themselves. You may even begin to believe that their mistreatment is somehow justified or that you deserve it. This psychological manipulation is a powerful tactic used by people who are unwilling to reflect on their own behavior. They deflect guilt, because accepting it would mean admitting they hurt you, and someone who doesn't truly care has no desire to face that truth. Instead, they protect their ego at your expense, turning every disagreement into an emotional trap. This dynamic not only harms your confidence, but also distorts your ability to trust your own feelings and perceptions. In healthy relationships, both people are accountable. They own up to their mistakes and work toward resolution with empathy. But when someone habitually escapes responsibility by placing blame on you, it's a form of emotional abuse that reveals how little they value your emotional health. It's not just about avoiding consequences. A deeply unsettling sign that someone doesn't care about you is when they constantly make you feel guilty for their mistakes. Instead of taking responsibility for their actions, they twist situations in ways that leave you feeling at fault, even when you've done nothing wrong. This type of behavior is subtle at first, often masked by manipulation or emotional deflection. They may break a promise, lie, say something hurtful, or neglect your needs, and when you confront them, they somehow manage to turn the situation around. Suddenly, you're the one who's too sensitive, too demanding, or always overreacting. They might say things like, "I wouldn't have said that if you hadn't provoked me," or "This wouldn't have happened if you understood me better." Over time, you start to carry the weight of their wrongdoings, apologizing for things that weren't your fault, walking on eggshells to avoid conflict, and constantly questioning your own reactions. But someone who genuinely cares about you knows the importance of holding your words and experiences with care. They protect your name in a room full of people, even when you're not there to defend it. When someone talks negatively about you to others, especially about things you shared privately, they're not just spreading rumors, they're silently telling the world that your dignity is optional. This kind of behavior not only damages your reputation, but also leaves you feeling exposed, disrespected, and isolated. It becomes hard to know who to trust, and you may start to withdraw emotionally, guarding yourself more closely, even from those who mean well. True care means loyalty in your presence and in your absence. If someone continually proves that they can't be trusted with your name, your story, or your heart, then they are showing you without saying a word that your well-being is not something they consider important. One of the most damaging signs that someone doesn't care about you is when they gossip about you behind your back or share personal things you told them in confidence. Trust is the foundation of any meaningful relationship, and when someone breaks that trust by turning your private words into public entertainment, it reveals a profound lack of respect and loyalty. You may have opened up to them in a moment of vulnerability, thinking you were safe, only to later hear your story twisted or shared with others who had no business knowing it. It stings deeply not just because your privacy was violated, but because it exposes the truth. They didn't value your trust. People who gossip about you when you're not around often disguise it as casual conversation, jokes, or concern, but at its core, it's betrayal. They may even try to excuse it by saying, "I didn't think it was a big deal," or "I was just venting." This imbalance becomes exhausting. You start to feel like a burden, like you're chasing someone who's barely looking back, and yet you still hold on, hoping they'll change, hoping they'll meet you halfway. But their continued lack of effort sends a clear message: you're not a priority. They may offer excuses claiming they're busy, tired, or distracted, and while everyone goes through those phases, genuine care still finds a way to express itself. A quick message, a thoughtful gesture, even a moment of presence can speak volumes. When someone repeatedly puts in minimal or no effort, especially after you've communicated your feelings, it shows that they're comfortable taking you for granted. They assume you'll keep showing up, regardless of how little they give in return. But real care is not passive. It shows up, it leans in, and it makes room for you even when it's inconvenient. A telling sign that someone doesn't genuinely care about you is their consistent lack of effort in maintaining the relationship. Whether it's a friendship, romantic connection, or even a family bond, all healthy relationships require mutual investment time, energy, and intention from both sides. When someone cares, they show up. They check in. They make time even when life gets busy because they value the connection. But someone who doesn't care will repeatedly leave the work to you. You find yourself being the one who always texts first, always makes the plans, always follows up, always tries to fix things when they go wrong. And when you pause, when you stop initiating, silence follows. Days, even weeks can go by without a word from them. They don't notice your absence because they never truly appreciated your presence. People who care about you may not always agree with your perspective, but they will hold space for your feelings. They will try to understand, even when it's uncomfortable or inconvenient. When someone invalidates you constantly, they are protecting their own ego at the expense of your emotional safety. It becomes clear that they care more about avoiding responsibility than about your hurt. Over time, this can silence you, making you afraid to speak up or be honest about what you feel, because you've learned it will be twisted or ignored. True care involves empathy. It means acknowledging someone's experience, even when you don't fully relate to it. If someone repeatedly makes you feel like your emotions are wrong or burdensome, it's not just a lack of care, it's a signal that your emotional world holds no real importance to them. A deeply painful sign that someone doesn't care about you is when they repeatedly invalidate your feelings. This often happens subtly at first through sarcasm, dismissive comments, or jokes made at your expense, but over time, it becomes a pattern that erodes your sense of self. You may try to express hurt, disappointment, or vulnerability, only to be met with indifference or defensiveness. They might say things like you're overreacting, you're too emotional, or you always make everything a big deal, turning your genuine emotions into something shameful or exaggerated. Instead of listening and trying to understand your perspective, they shut it down. This emotional dismissal can leave you feeling confused, guilty, or even ashamed for having normal human reactions. You start second-guessing yourself, wondering if your emotions are too much, if your needs are irrational, or if maybe you really are the problem. But what's actually happening is a form of emotional neglect. But the truth is, a person who respects you will make an effort to honor your boundaries, not trample over them for their own convenience. When someone repeatedly disrespects what you clearly communicate, it reveals a deeper issue. They prioritize their comfort over your well-being. They are more invested in maintaining control or ease than in cultivating mutual respect. This creates an unhealthy dynamic where you are constantly adjusting, shrinking, and compromising just to keep the peace while they continue on, unaffected and unchecked. Boundaries are not about control. They are about mutual respect and understanding. If someone consistently crosses yours, no matter how calmly or clearly you've expressed them, it's a glaring signal that your emotional health is not a priority to them. Another clear sign that someone doesn't truly care about you is their consistent disregard for your boundaries. Boundaries are not barriers meant to push people away. They are expressions of self-respect and emotional safety. When you set a boundary, you're saying, this is what I need to feel secure, respected, and balanced. But someone who doesn't care will continuously test or ignore those limits. They may laugh them off, call you too sensitive, or accuse you of being difficult when all you're doing is trying to protect your peace. You might tell them you need space, but they bombard you with calls or messages. You might ask for honesty, but they continue to lie or manipulate. You may make it clear that certain behaviors hurt you if they repeat them without apology. Over time, this wears you down. You begin to question whether your needs are unreasonable, whether your feelings are valid, or whether you're asking for too much. The way they respond with cliches rather than connection, it starts to affect your self-worth. You might find yourself speaking less, sharing less, or second-guessing whether what you say even matters. True care shows up in attention and eye contact, in follow-up questions, and remembering the small details that matter to you. When someone repeatedly fails to be present with you in conversation, it sends a loud message they are not emotionally invested in your life, your thoughts, or your well-being. Listening is not just a skill, it's a reflection of love, empathy, and respect. When it's missing, what remains is emptiness disguised as dialogue. Another powerful indicator that someone doesn't truly care about you is their inability or unwillingness to genuinely listen. In a healthy connection, both people feel heard, understood, and valued. But with someone who doesn't care, conversations become one-sided, not a meaningful exchange, but a performance. You start to notice that they constantly steer discussions back to themselves, cutting you off mid-sentence, brushing over your thoughts, or pretending to listen while clearly being distracted. When you try to share something personal or emotional, they respond with half-hearted comments or quickly shift the topic to their own experiences. It becomes obvious that they're not listening to understand, they're merely waiting for their turn to speak. Over time, this makes you feel invisible, as if your words don't matter. It's subtle but deeply disheartening the way they look at their phone while you talk, the way they forget important things you told them. A person who truly values you will be around when skies are gray, not just when the sun is shining in their favor. They won't see your kindness as a convenience, but as something to honor and match. If someone's presence in your life is conditional on their own needs, then their care is an illusion, a mask worn only when it's useful to them. Recognizing this behavior isn't easy, especially when you're emotionally invested, but it's essential to protect yourself from cycles of neglect and disappointment. One of the clear signs that someone doesn't genuinely care about you is when they only appear in your life when it benefits them. These individuals treat relationships like transactions, showing up only when they need a favor, support, or attention, but disappearing the moment you're the one who needs something. You may notice that they rarely check in on you, don't remember important things about your life, and offer little emotional support when you're struggling. Yet, the moment they're in trouble, you're the first person they call. And because you're kind-hearted and generous, you respond hoping each time that maybe this interaction will be different, that maybe they're finally reciprocating the bond you've tried to build. But unfortunately, they vanish again as soon as they get what they came for, leaving you feeling used, confused, and emotionally empty. It's not about expecting constant attention or dramatic gestures. It's about consistency, presence, and mutual care.